Welcome to the Start Something Show. Join world-renowned experts, change agents, and everyday folks who have done the amazing. All here to help you start something incredible. Now it's time to step out, live your perfect day, and create a legacy with your host, Tina Dietz.
Hey there, super starters. How the heck are you? It is Tina Dietz coming at ya from my home studio here in lovely Florida. That's where we currently are. Putting down a few roots after jet setting for a couple of years back and forth and all over the universe to Costa Rica and beyond, mostly because of the kiddos. It's weird when you have children who actually want to go to school and learn stuff. I don't know how that happened. It's kind of interesting, but I'm proud of them. Very cool. My son has just started at a charter school that's focused on wellness, and they have gym twice a day. So he is coming home like totally charged up, totally energetic. My daughter, on the other hand, is at the local public school. She doesn't have the option of going to a charter school, and they only have gym once a week. Once a week. Interesting, because, you know, most research, if you look at performance and athletes and mental abilities and learning and all of that good stuff, well, guess what? Activity is highly correlated with mental performance. So it'll be interesting to see when it's going to happen with this school this year and how these kids at this new charter school do with their performance with all of this activity on a daily basis. I know I'm pretty excited about it, but the good side effect of it is that my daughter, because she's a very competitive little bug, can't say as I blame her, and my husband have started a daily Couch to 5K program. She's 9. Well, he's older than 9. And the two of them are getting up in the morning and getting out and running in the Florida dampness, regardless of the dampness here, the humidity in hurricane season. But you know what? That's okay. It's good for them. So having a little father-daughter bonding time out of that competitive spark. Who knows? Who knows what these children will create with the universe in their hands? Oh, for my parents out there, I'm sure you can relate to what I'm saying here. But anyway, a little bit of a side note there. Today on the show, we're going to be talking with Marla Tabaka. Marla Tabaka, really cool lady. Really cool lady. We have one of those mutual admiration society relationships where I've been on her show. She's been on my show. She has a really cool show called The $1 Million Mindset. And just a excellent coach, also a columnist for Inc. magazine. And we'll be digging into some cool business topics and like we always do here on the show. So that'll be a little bit later. Very, very cool. And today, who I want to tell you about is our Super Starter of the Month. Now, I met this fabulous artist online on Facebook, and we belong to the same group of just people who are, you know, building their business sustainably and just networking and all this good stuff. And she just really stood out for me as a fine artist. I don't see too many fine artists in business groups. It fascinated me. And I went and took a peek at her website, and it nearly blew my face off. I felt like I was looking at Rembrandt. I felt like I was looking at, you know, the painters from hundreds of years ago who studied the human form. Incredible. So I felt like I absolutely had to feature Sarah Marie Lacy as my Super Starter of the Month. Now, Sarah Marie is up in Ottawa, Canada, and she has recently, much to my pleasure, she's moving and starting an art studio. In addition to featuring her own artwork, it is absolutely amazing. This fire plug of a young woman, and I don't mean to sound that condescending. It's just that she's accomplished so much. She's so incredibly talented. She studied in France for a couple of years, bootstrapped her way into studying in France to learn this masterful technique, something most people in art don't choose to do as a path because it is so intensive of a process to learn. And her artwork is now available for purchase. I would have one of these in my home in a heartbeat. The people that she does these studies of this artwork, the sketches, the paintings, they're there with you. They're alive on the canvas. Even on her website, they just kind of jump right off the screen at you. So if you want to see an amazing artist doing some amazing art and teaching other people how to get their self-expression out in the world, check out her website. It is smlacyart.com, like SM like Sarah Marie, Lacy, Lacy, art.com. She's a painter. She's a draftswoman. She's a fabulous human being. She really is an absolute delight. Go check out her art. She is our Superstarter of the Month. And if you'd like to nominate someone as a Superstarter of the Month, come on over to thestartsomethingshow.com and click on the Contact Us page. And just shoot us an email. Tell us who you know that's fabulous and why they should be featured on the show. If we say nice things about them, we'll probably say nice things about you too. All right, on to the interview. Well, Superstarters, today I am welcoming onto the show a really wonderful guest, and I've had the pleasure of being on her show twice now, so I'm excited to invite her over here to the Start Something show, and I'm talking about internationally known success coach and Inc. magazine author Marla Tabaka. She works with entrepreneurs to help them realize significant personal and financial success. I love this woman's work. I feel like we're sisters from another mister. And her integrative approach to coaching combines mindset management and strategic planning, delivering results that have taken many of her entrepreneurial clients well into the millions. Prior to doing what she does now, she was an Emmy Award-winning producer at NBC, 21 years, on television. And she worked as a creative consultant for large and mid-sized corporations. She established and sold a retail business and then founded a coaching practice back in 2003. She is all over magazines, Fox Business News, Huffington Post, NABO Start Brief, Entrepreneur.com, and of course, she's a regular column in Inc. magazine. Marla, thank you for starting something with me today.
Well, I'm such a fan, Tina. It's such an honor to be here. Thank you.
I love a mutual admiration society.
Me too. I love your show.
And you're awesome, and I'm awesome,
so awesome.
And it's so great.
Yeah. Everybody's awesome.
Isn't it wonderful? I know it does get to the sunshine and rainbows portion every so often, and it's so nice when it does. So nice when it does. So, well, let's dive right into it. Some things I don't know about you, I get to ask you today, which I'm excited about. And so I'm curious, when did you and kind of what was the trigger for you to change your life and start something?
So, gosh, you know what? I'm in my 50s, Tina, so I've had a lot of those, a lot of those triggers and a lot of changes in my life. And I suppose the first really big one was leaving NBC. And that was such a huge move for me because when I was a child, and I'm talking a kid, my brother-in-law was the security guard, the night security guard at NBC Studios here in Chicago. And so he would take me up there on the overnight shift and I'd sleep on the couch and I'd play, in the rafters. And I knew that I was going to be retiring from NBC someday. I mean, I just knew I would work there and I knew I would retire there. Well, the first half came true. Absolutely. I worked there. I got a part-time job, a temporary job actually. And I spent, more than 20 years there, but something changed inside of me and the company. And I can't even explain it. It was just this intense, intuitive feeling that it was time to leave. And it took so much courage. And, it took me, to be very honest, 2 years. 2 years of working on my resume, 2 years of understanding that I wasn't going to come up with the next best great plan to get me out of there, and that it was just going to happen. And I just had to have some faith that my next move would come along. And so that's what I did. And at that point, I left without really anything in place, and some consulting gigs just fell in my lap. So that was like the next big change for me. And I did that for a couple of years and did not like it. I just didn't like it. It was working with some of the top 500 corporations, and the stress was just more than I wanted in my life. And that's, to me, not what life is about. And so I decided, talk about sunshine and smiles, I decided to open a coffee house.
Yay! Oh, that's funny. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Now, would you consider yourself an extrovert?
I'm somewhere in the middle because I really need my time alone. I really have to confess that I'm not great about getting out into public and meeting new people because I just don't, unless it's a one-to-one, I don't really enjoy that much. I can be shy about going to large networking events, yet I'm very outgoing in the relationships that I do develop, and developing those relationships from social media and different places. So I've never put a label on myself. I don't know which way is stronger for me.
And I ask because, coffee house, I think, very social, very, yes. So the jump from consulting to coffee.
Yeah. So here's where it came from. It came from me caring about community, both global and local community. And I live in a town in Naperville, Illinois. And at the time, the side of the city that I live on was very transient, meaning corporate executives were coming and going and coming and going. And the average length of residency was only 2 to 3 years. And so there was no sense of home. And I came from, as a youngster, I was raised in the city, and it wasn't until I was 26 that I moved to the suburbs. And so I came from a tight community environment, and we lacked that. And so I thought, you know what? I love coffee. I love community. I love the arts. How can I combine all those things and be happy? And so it came up as a coffee house. So that's where that came from.
Mm-hmm. And then you sold that business eventually, is that right?
I did. So here's the thing, to keep a coffee house is the type of coffee house I had, which was a very large volume. It had a drive-through. It had a private conference room. It had,
my goodness,
music and artists
wow.
and events. Yeah, it was huge. To keep that open is somewhere between $18,000 to $22,000 a month. A lot of coffee. Lots of coffee. And so, I bought it on September 1st, 2001. And then 10 days later, we had September 9/11, right?
Oh, wow.
And so a lot of things changed, and the change was long lasting. And so I really did struggle in the business for quite a while, and finally was getting it up to speed. But by the time that happened, by the time I was really making money and turning a profit, I was just exhausted. I was exhausted.
There's not enough coffee in the world, yes.
Exactly, right? Those midnight espresso shots weren't enough. I became immune.
Totally.
And so, again, just taking that leap of faith, I just put it out there that I wanted to sell the place, and two folks came by and decided they wanted to buy the coffee house. And, a lot happened there, too, that gave me a great sense of failure. And I thought we'd talk about that a little later in the show, too, because I learned so much from my experience as an entrepreneur and moving into coaching that I really could have labeled as failure, and yet I didn't. And so that kind of took me into coaching. Well, that I hired a business coach when I owned the coffee house. And Steve came into my life through word of mouth. And even though we didn't get the coffee house to where I wanted it to be, mostly because of my own burnout, I considered that such a critical relationship in my life. And I think the biggest piece of it was that initial aha, when after all those years of struggle and making these huge decisions that affected so many people, and looking at my money just go away between the market and the coffee house and everything, we're looking at like $1 million and just kind of fizzling away. And finally thinking, wow, I'm not alone anymore. That was my biggest, just deep breath, aha moment. I have someone who's vested. My success, his success is based on my success. And it just felt so good.
Yeah, to have somebody in it with you, it can be such a lonely proposition owning a business. So I think that's one of the reasons when we kind of feel like we're a purple squirrel. We're unique, we're different, and then we meet somebody like you and I talking. It's like, I'm a purple squirrel, you're a purple squirrel, we could be purple squirrels, yay! So it's the trap of uniqueness. It's like, I got to be unique, I got to be different, but I need other people. Right. So I want to go back to what you said about failure, because this is always a strong theme here on the show, is kind of transforming failure for people. And I know you wrote a really fabulous article for Inc. magazine on failure, and you're just talking about what a lot of people would have considered a failure, which is, you decided to, move on from consulting, and you decided to move on from the coffee house, and then you ended up in coaching. So, how did you frame, or how did you work with these failures to shift it for yourself?
Yeah. And, initially when you're in the throes of failure, it just doesn't feel good, right? And it's frightening, and you can feel defeated. And for me, the trick to that is to turn it around, is to do just that, is to start looking inside of that failure and for what is positive. And quite honestly, I learned that a number of years ago when my husband passed away. Not that that's failure, but it was deep, intense grief, and recovery was difficult. And so it was when I started writing in a gratitude journal, and it sounds kind of like, wow, your husband passes away and you're writing about gratitude. But I'll tell you what, and I didn't do it for about a year after he passed away, but I'll tell you what, recognizing the gratitude in my life for what I was grateful for really helped me to realize that I was healing, and that there was another side of this enormous loss that was actually beautiful and wonderful, and things were going on in my life that I was very much embracing, and wouldn't have had this tragic loss not occurred. So it doesn't diminish the loss. It doesn't diminish the failure, if you want to perceive something that is going on in your life as a failure. However, it puts a new spin on it. And as I said in that article that I just wrote that you're referring to, Tina, assuming that failing is the opposite of success is way wrong. You don't want to do that. Every time you fail, you learn something. And each time you fail, you gain more experience. And each time you fail, you come away with more tools that you can use to be successful. And so that's what I did with the coffee house, is I looked inside of it and I said, okay, what have I learned? Well, as it turns out, I met my coach, which then, launched a new career for me. And I learned about what it takes to run a brick and mortar business, and I learned about business. My gosh, I learned about being an entrepreneur, and all of that laid the foundation for me to become an outstanding coach. I promise you, if I could find opportunities, after the tragic loss of my husband and father of my two small children, you could find opportunities anywhere.
Yeah, that really creates a pretty big context for, if you can make it through that, then that's a lot of resilience building right there. And, on the Backstage Pass portion of our show, you and I are going to dig in some more about how to deal with perceived failure. And I'm really looking forward to that conversation along with some other of your fabulous coaching. But before we get to that, I also wanted to let people know that we're going to have links to Marla's articles page on Inc.com. You can go to Inc.com and search for her. You can also go back to the show notes at thestartsomethingshow.com, or right in the show notes on iTunes and Stitcher. And you can find the link to get to Marla's articles there, because she's written a lot of amazing articles for Inc. magazine that I highly recommend that you go and read. It's a great resource. You are a phenomenal resource, my dear.
Thank you.
Really, really. So now let's talk about, developing a coaching practice, because a lot of coaches coach coaches. And I know you and I have some of that in our practice, but not the majority of really what we do, which is something I always, respect about you as well, because there's something just kind of like weird about that. I think if you only focus on coaching one industry as a business coach, it's got a little of that flavor of, I'm going to teach you how to make $1 million writing books by selling you this book.
Right.
Exactly. It's got a little bit of that going on. So.
I agree. It's easy to create a success story when the people you're teaching to create the success story are creating your success story for you.
Yeah, it's that weird endless loop thing going on there. So, but some of your clients kind of range across the board. And now, how did you find your place in the coaching industry? Because finding a niche is something we talk about a lot. So, how did you kind of settle into this place that you have now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I talked in the first part of the show, I talked about that faith thing and that just knowing and giving up the resistance, because I have to admit, Tina, going in, I struggled with a niche and I was scared to death. And like I think most coaches who finally, do their studies and what have you and hang their shingle, I was afraid. And so it was when I gave out that resistance and I just put it out there and said, look, here's what I love. Here's who I love working with. And then it came to me, what happened is an opportunity came to me to coach for an organization called Count Me In for Women's Economic Independence. And it was a wonderful, nonprofit organization who helped female entrepreneurs reach the $1 million mark. And so that was my client base, largely my client base. And I loved it. And then I fell even deeper into the niche when I began to realize that for all of my training and all of my experience, these women who were coming into my practice were brilliant. And frankly, most of them knew how to grow their business, but they were in their own way. And so, I was in coaching for 3 months before I just felt desperate to find something beyond my skills as a coach that could really, really help them get out of their own way and change their mindset and develop a healthier mindset about themselves, their self-confidence, their value, everything. And so with that, when I put that out into the universe within 1 week, the emotional freedom techniques, people also know it as EFT tapping, fell into my lap from 3 different and separate resources.
It's a great body of work. Phenomenal body of work. Yes. Absolutely.
And so I was very fortunate because I looked into it, and Gary Craig, the man who developed the process, was conducting a week-long training workshop in Colorado. And the next week I hopped on a plane and I began my training. And looking back at it, it was rather remarkable because I came back from that training and I got a new client who had a business. She was at 130 in annual revenues and taking home a whopping $34,000 a
That's
year.
A common story.
Yeah, right. And she had a PhD. She was so well versed, and she's known in her industry, what have you. And what we found through coaching was that she had a vision beyond the vision, as I call it. And that was that she had told herself that when she reaches $1 million, that was her success marker. And she was going to go out there and teach other minorities and women entrepreneurs how to do it. And she didn't believe in herself. She didn't believe she had enough value to do that. And so I got to put EFT to work right away. This was days after my return.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, could you give our listeners just a real quick snapshot of what EFT is for those who aren't familiar with it? Because it's good juju.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we grow up, we develop a paradigm, and it's based on our life experiences. And unfortunately, we tend to hang on to the negative experiences far more than we do the wonderful and uplifting experiences. So growing up, when your parent once or twice might question your value or throw your value back at you or tell you that you're never going to amount to something or anything, those are the things that become very deeply ingrained in our psyche, and they actually become embedded in us in these neural pathways that are created if we experience enough of that type of thing. And so when people when they have a lot of doubt, they have a lot of fear, they question their own self-value, or they respond to things in a way that they don't understand in a negative, like they have a strong physiological response, it's an indicator that we have these past experiences, and we all do, that are causing us disharmony and disrupt our ability to move forward in whatever we want to move forward to. Well, EFT, and it's so fascinating because we have all these scientific studies now just in the recent few years that shows this happening. What EFT does, what you do is you focus in on those negative events and those negative belief systems. It's an energy psychology, and it is the only energy psychology that focuses on the negative, which is uncomfortable at first. But while you're focusing in and talking about those negative experiences and beliefs, you're actually physically tapping on meridian endpoints like you use in acupuncture on your face. And that tapping disrupts the negative flow of energy. And actually, I like to use the visual that it blows up that bridge, that neural pathway that was creating this loop, this endless loop that you're in, this negative loop. And therefore, it makes room for the positive. And so what people tell me and what I've experienced is when you look at a negative experience, it's like drawing a curtain across it that is nearly opaque, but not opaque. And so you can see that it happened. You know that it happened. It's still there, but you connect no longer any deep emotional intensity to it. And there is no longer a negative physiological response to it.
And so that's why it's called emotional freedom technique, because you're free from that set of emotions or that set of attachments to those memories and those neural pathways. And I love a fellow brain nerd so much.
Me too. It's
so
always
much.
So fun. I could talk about this stuff forever.
Exactly.
And Tina, in the case of the entrepreneur that I mentioned that I did EFT on, the first person I did EFT with, she went on to break the $1 million mark in 6 months, and within 7 years was up to 45 million.
Holy crap. Mm-hmm. That's some serious numbers right there. That's very cool. Yeah. That's very cool. And I think that says a lot too. So many times business owners, entrepreneurs, especially online entrepreneurs, are encouraged to buy all of these systems and magic bullets and all of that. And really, yes, some of those things can be really helpful. Yes, we need tools. Yes, we need technology to a certain extent. But man, it really comes down to our guts being in alignment. Mm-hmm. And getting out of our own way and getting freed up. It really, really does. Really, really does. So, Marla, I know we're going to talk more about this and also transforming our relationship to failure on the backstage pass of the show today. But before we finish up here, I did have a couple more questions I wanted to cover with you. And one was, knowing what you know now, but imagining that maybe, you had to start over again and you didn't have all the resources that you've built, but you had all your knowledge. What are some steps that you would take to start something today fresh?
To start something today. Well, one of the psychological advantages that I would give myself is again, to just believe in myself. And to believe in my ability to carry forward whatever it is that I want to start, and to give up that horrible resistance that I did have going on. And then I think it's important if you're launching a business and just launching a business to really do your research first, and to don't fall in love with your idea because you and the people you've asked, who are family and friends who have to say it's a great idea, to don't fall in love with it for that reason, but to go out and ask your potential customers and find out all about what they think and what they're looking for, because what you're looking for and what they're looking for could be two very, very different things. And then I always tell my entrepreneurs who are launching something that has to do with a full-blown service, like coaches launching programs, or a product like maybe a cosmetic line, to roll it out one step at a time, because that is your test. That is your research right there. And so, for instance, when I write a new program, like I have coming up in the fall, I have my eSchool program to help people, solopreneurs, learn to be entrepreneurs. You know what? I'm going to reveal a secret here. Only the first chapter of that program is written. Okay.
Oh, yes. That's the way to do it.
Yeah. So roll it out slowly and work on it as you build it, and then you'll have it forever. But one mistake people make is to just throw all of their resources into what they're doing and put so much time and years into building it, and then they roll it out only to find out that it's not going to go.
Exactly. I have to admit, I've made that mistake early on myself.
Yep.
But we call that, to do it, what you're doing and what most successful entrepreneurs do, we call that building the plane on the way down.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, exactly.
I love that.
Exactly. And that way we can be responsive to what people really need.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the way of serving people best. So that's the good thing. Marla, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm really looking forward to continuing our conversation on the Backstage Pass portion of the show on the StartSomethingShow.com. So thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome, Tina. I'm just having so much fun.
Me too. Me too. And Superstarters, you can find all the links for today's show on Marla's show page at thestartsomethingshow.com, and also connect with her. Check out her stuff. Check out her articles on Inc.com. And also you can go to marlatabaka.com, MarlaTabaka.com. Again, the links are on the show notes, so don't worry about spelling it. We got it covered for you. And connect with her in her articles or a one-on-one consultation, especially if you've hit that kind of glass ceiling in your business and you're not sure how to break out of that box. She is a fabulous resource to work with. We will see you next week on the Start Something Show, and check out the Backstage Pass interviews at thestartsomethingshow.com. We'll see you next week.
Start something with purpose. Start something with freedom. Start something now. Go to thestartsomethingshow.com, join our community of superstarters, and get your perfect day planner pack, a free resource to help you create the life you've dreamed of living. Take action now, and we'll see you for our next exciting episode.